Welcome to Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association. You can find us at LCARA.net, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Instagram. If you're enjoying the videos we're producing here at LCARA, please help our club out by hitting that subscribe button. Also, give us some feedback on our videos. Click the like button, share with anybody who may find it interesting, and be sure and hit the bell icon to make sure you get notified of the next video release. And so this part two, basically, is going to cover the logging software that I like to use, and I've tried a couple of them, and I've tried spreadsheets, customized spreadsheets, and I know we can do paper logs, and there's all kinds of ways we can do logging, and there's software and things out there. Some of it costs a little bit of money, some of it's free. What I'm bringing to you today is called Log4, the number 4 OM, and this is free software. And there's a couple things that I liked about it. Not going to claim that it's perfect. There's some other good software out there. And again, if you prefer just to do pen and paper, if you prefer to do a simple spreadsheet or whatever you like to do, that's fine. I've done those. I've done manual entry into QRZ is where I've put all my logs for now. May move on to something else later. But I've done several of those other options. A lot of us have. But what I liked about this one was a couple of things. One, it helps to automate some things, and it can give you a level of rig control. Um, Now, as I got into this, and being that I work in the IT industry, and like some of us, we tend to be gearheads, and I'm very computer oriented. I have been for many years. And so if I can do things with a computer, or if I can augment something that I can do with a computer, I'll research that and look into that. Whether it's astronomy, there's a whole new world of things we can do with our telescopes and taking pictures, astrophotography and things in the astronomy fields. And it's been interesting to catch up on some of that. I was into astronomy back in college and have gotten back into it somewhat here in the last few years. But here in ham radio, we think about ham radio and we think about a hobby that I think a lot of people's perception of this hobby is stuck probably 50 years ago. Some some person holed away in a room or a shack with an old tube style radio and doing everything completely manually and just the way things were decades ago. And of course, some of that still exists, and that actually can be the fun to do things in a retro way. But there's been a lot of modernization, just like anything else, and computers can augment the way we might like to participate in any given hobby, and I think amateur radio is no different. So we covered software-defined radios, just briefly an overview of that in the first part of this series. Here we're going to talk about this logging software and just cover a few of the things I like about it, what it helps me to do. I'm not going to go into every feature. You could have hours and hours probably of the feature set of your preferred software-defined radio, hardware and software, and your logging software. I just want to kind of introduce the topics and talk about a few of the things I like about them as I continue to use them and learn about them myself, and just to make sure that we're aware of some of the options that we have in the ham radio world today. So again, this one's called Log4OM. Now I do want to briefly bring in a web browser window and just go over a couple of things. One is we're going to be using, or I typically use QRZ. I think a lot of us do. Now I like to do it pretty much instantaneously is not quite the right word, but near real time. When I'm on the radio and I'm hearing call signs and I'm doing things, I'm usually sitting right here with a computer. We don't all have a computer next to our radios, but I think a lot of us do today. And when I'm hearing call signs, if I'm hearing a pileup, I'm going to try to try to wedge my way into the pileup. If it's an interesting remote station, a country, whatever. My personal preference is I like to know who I'm about to try to talk to first, and then try to make the contact. Now I know sometimes other people they see a spike on the waterfall or something, they jump on it and call in and get in there, and I hear it all the time. We all do it, and the first thing they do is say, well, basically, who am I talking to? What's your call sign? They haven't been there for 10 or 20 or 30 minutes trying to break in. They haven't been hearing the call signs. haven't looked it up yet, and they were able to just kind of get right in. And when it works out that way, that's kind of nice when you can just jump right in on a QSO. But what I typically like to do is hear somebody and try to look up their call sign first to know who I'm talking to, and yeah, if the call sign is one that's at least available through something like QRZ. Now, some of the folks that I've contacted in the last year and a half, they're not on QRZ. Sometimes I can find them through other outlets for other countries and things. Not everybody does everything through QRZ, of course, but most folks you're going to be able to find them here. So, along with having my SDR going, along with having this logging software going that we're going to cover, I usually have a web browser page open to QRZ so I can look up call signs. And in fact, this logging software can actually help me do that. So that's one thing, of course. We're probably going to be doing some amount of that either now or maybe later if we're just taking paper notes. And so let's come back over here to Log4OM. This is the Log4OM interface, and it has some things I like about it. It shows you, and you can get this, you can have this as one of the panels for N1MM as well, but it shows you the gray line, right? It shows you the gray line map. It's kind of nice to have this over here and see, where things are and who should be coming up strong and some of those things. So it has that, and that takes up a big part of the screen. On the right-hand side, and this is part of what I like about both of the programs, N1MM Plus and Log4OM, is again, it has this set of servers that as people are making contacts, they can spot those people they just made a contact with, and they'll show up to anybody else using the software. So you may have even seen this adding these links in here as I was talking about the intro and talking about N1MM. As more contacts are made, they'll show up over here. Now, the other thing I like about this, and there's ways to do this with N1MM, it's a little more complicated in a way, but it's not too big a deal in the settings for that program. But let's say I'm not doing any digital, so I don't want to see digital stuff. So I just unclick that. And I'm not doing CW, so I can unclick that one. Now, all I'm going to see in the list is phone activity. If all you want to see is CW, you can turn that one on. If all you want to see was digital, you can turn that one on. So that's what I like about this. You can see all three of those, or you can see whichever mode that you're concentrating on. And then you can see what kind of activity is happening. Now, again, it's a worldwide user base. So what I find pretty frequently is, sure, some pretty interesting names of countries and things are going to pop in over here. It doesn't mean you're going to be able to hear whatever activity is there, but it makes it very quick and easy to check on the activity and see what's going on. In fact, that's how I was able to make contact with Australia a few days ago. It's one of those countries, when I see it pop up, Australia, Japan, a few places like that, when I see them pop up, I at least go check that frequency, that band, and see if I can hear anything at all. And all of a sudden one night, I was hearing Australia. I had just barely heard it a time or two, but I could tell it was nowhere near enough to make contact. But the other day, it was half decent. Probably a 5.1, maybe 5.2, 4 something. But I thought, well, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try to make contact, and I actually got through after a while. Now, of course, there was a lot of people because, Australia is one of those places, especially at this point in the sunspot cycle. It can be a tough capture here in the U.S. anyway, depending on where you are in the U.S. So here you can see some things popping in. Sardinia just popped in. So again, here's what's kind of cool about this. Now we're going to get into rig control and how to set up the interaction with our radios in the third segment of this series. You can see the current settings for my radio. I have VFO-A and VFO-B, and it is in fact showing you what those are set to. If I turn the dial on my radio, if you look here in this upper right corner, you'll see it's changing frequency. So I still have manual control of my radio, of course. But the other kind of cool thing, let's say something on 70 meters, anything sort of interesting sticking out on around 40 meters. Italy down here. Let's check on 7155 Italy. We'll get into the rig control a little bit later, but it's showing me that, and I can manually tune to that, right? But because I have rig control, I can double click that, and you'll see in the upper right corner, it went to 7155. It actually took my rig to 7155. I'm not hearing anything. But that's what's kind of nice about this. It just kind of speeds up what you can do. Now, just like I said for the software-defined radio, my radio is more sensitive than the software-defined radio is. The software-defined radio helps augment my interaction with my radio, helps me to see, a lot of the active, uh, stations that are out there, the frequencies that are out there, and I can check them all out. And this is sort of a similar boat. Just because you see something on here doesn't mean you're going to be able to hear anything. It depends on your antenna, where you're located, the power, the band conditions, all those things that we all know about. But it just gives you some areas you might want to go look at. I'm sitting here on 40 meters, but if I see something pop in on 80 or 17 or 15 or wherever it is, I may say, well, let me go check that out real fast. Let me switch bands and let me go over there and check out that potential activity. And sometimes you'll hear stuff and it'll give you a shortcut to go get that contact. Other times, you're just not hearing anything. I occasionally hear a little bit from Japan. Again, it's not been strong enough for me to make a contact yet. But at least I know when there is at least some activity in that region of the world, and I can go check it out. Again, I was seeing Australia off and on quite a bit, made a contact. I've heard Hawaii. I'm more towards the east coast of the U.S. You can see the red dot on the map. The red dot is about where I am. I've heard Hawaii and thought I was going to make contact one night. I was hearing it pretty decent, 5.2 maybe. Just couldn't quite get in there. But again, it just gives you some things to go, kind of chase down and have some fun. And you'll see some interesting places pop up. You'll see islands pop up occasionally, different small little nations. I hit a small island off the coast of Canada, and some other little smaller countries. Um, so just if there's some place you're hoping to get, or you just look over here and you say, oh, I've not hit Belgium yet, or I've not hit Italy yet, or I've not hit wherever it is yet. You can at least say, oh, well, somebody was active in the Maldives, and you can go check that out. So again, you combine this with the SDR if you want to, and it just helps you maybe be a little more proactive and a little bit more successful, with the time you spend on your radio. So we'll get into the rig control later, but again, you can at least see what's happening here, see who's active, and you can manually change to that band. You can manually tune to that band, right? Italy over here on 80 meters, 36, 35. On my radio, I'm going to switch over. You might hear the beeps. I'm going to switch over to 80 meters. You see we're on 3790. I switched over, and now it's at 3635. Now, one of the things with this, with the SDR and with logging software like this, and again, N1MM, is kind of a similar situation. Folks, you still have to pay attention to what you're legally licensed to press the button on, right? Press the key on, because you'll see stuff that could be out of band for you. Whether you're technician general or amateur extra, you may see stuff happening out of band. Other countries, they handle their licensing and their enforcement differently. So you still have to pay attention to the band plan and what your licensing allows. But look, I'm just manually tuning. We're going to go over 36, 35. Now I can tell you there's some noise. I'm not sure if I'm really hearing anything on that station or not. But again, you can do it manually. You can let the software-defined radio augment your use of your radio manually. Now, I think it's really cool when you get rig control, when you get the interaction going on, and we're going to cover that in the third segment. But I like that this shows you the gray line, kind of shows you, it at least tries to guesstimate what the distance is between you and a particular station that's coming through on the list here. I don't know that these are always super accurate, but it tries to give you an idea what those are going to be. Now, towards the upper left part of this, you've got the QSO information. You can put in your sent and received signal report. It shows you the name of the contact, their call sign, and of course, then you can put in your contact and a note, and automatically puts in the time and date stamp and everything for you. And then you hit enter when you have a successful QSO. And I've got it set up to where it's going to pipe that right into QRZ.com. There's no import export. Whenever I make a contact, I hit enter, automatically updates my log. I just kind of like that. It just speed things up a little bit, and I don't forget, right? I don't forget anything. I used to do it manually, and you forget things. I've probably missed a few QSOs that didn't make it into my more permanent logs. Not the end of the world, but just a little bit of a shame. So I just kind of like that, right? That it's automatic, and it can do logbook of the world and EQSL and some other things. So we'll get into how to control your rig in the final segment of this. Uh, so it's just logging software, but it has a couple of nice features. It has the gray line. It has the list, right? That worldwide user list of activity that you may or may not be able to hear, but you can go check it out either manually or once you get maybe rig control going on. If you come back to the right upper corner, you can see the VFOA and VFOB. You can see my VFOB is on 20 meters. I'm going to switch over, right? Use my AB button. Now you see VFOA is on 20 meters. So again, you've got the interaction between the two radios. And I've got the FT891, and it's not super advanced, but it can do a few things. And it can work with these software packages. And the other thing I wanted to point out is when you click on one of these listings, let's go to Trinidad and Tobago. It's going to do a quick check on QRZ. Notice these blue buttons in here, and you got the one that says lookup. So if I click on lookup, so we clicked on the Trinidad and Tobago. If I click lookup, bring in my browser, it automatically opened up that QRZ page for whoever that call sign is. As long as it can find one, you can click on that and look it up. Again, I like to do that. I like to know a little bit about who I'm about to talk to before I key the mic. That's kind of nice. You can just click on that and it'll open it right up, and it'll show you that. So, there's that one. Let's click on Sardinia. Click on lookup. So it opened up that one. So it'll automatically open those up for you so you can check on those really quickly and really easily. So again, it just that's some of the stuff I kind of like about it. I usually use all three monitors that I have. I'm just fortunate to have three monitors, but I use all three programs. I'll have SDR going, I'll have my logging going, and I've got a web browser open to QRZ, and I'm using all three of those during a session to see what's happening, see what's out there. Even if I can't hear somebody, if it's this Clipperton Island, it's like shows it out there in the ocean on the map over there. Let's look that one up. Sometimes I just like, I went and looked. I can't hear anything, but who's over there? Madison Jones, Marquesas Islands, wherever it is, So it's just interesting to see who's out there, see what's going on. Panama. I got El Salvador the other day. Saw them pop up over here and was like, oh, I don't have El Salvador. Let me see if I can hear that. And they weren't that far away. It was like 1,700 miles. It wasn't a great signal, to be honest, but I was able to make the contact, so that was nice. So I like the logging software. It's just logging software, but it has some nice features, I think, to be able to see what's happening with your rig if you want to have that or are able to have that control. Or even if you're going to use it manually, you can easily look up call signs on QRZ. You can watch the gray line. And of course, its primary function is logging software, and it does that. Whether you're going to export that to Logbook of the World or QRZ or wherever you want to put it, it logs it internally as well, runs its own little database. And it just kind of streamlines things. I guess that's what I like about using some of these software packages to sort of augment my use of the radio. For me, at least, my mindset, it helps me to streamline and helps me to get more time on the mic and enjoy the radio that much more. Now, I use the radio in my car and occasionally go portable or to a field day or something like that. And you're not going to have all this stuff in those situations. That's okay. That's okay. We can use the radios manually and just enjoy that aspect of it too. When I'm sitting here in front of a computer with monitors, I just kind of figure, why not take advantage of that? And so I just wanted to share that with folks. Say, hey, these things are out there. There's a lot of choices. Do some research. Use your web browser of choice, your search engine of choice, and see what's out there. See what interests you, what looks good to you, and explore what your rig can do. And if you want some of these add-ons to your radio, whether it's in a more manual type mode or if you can configure rig control with a USB cable or something like that, whatever works for you, right? Because we can enjoy this hobby in a lot of different ways. whether you've got an old tube style radio and you like to do things the old-fashioned way, or if you're maybe a little bit more like me and like to take advantage of as many of the modern facilities and software and things that we have as possible. So again, there's a lot in here when you get into configurations and things. I'm not going to go into to everything in this video, especially. We'll show kind of how to set up the rig control in the final segment of this. But mostly, again, it's just to make sure folks are kind of aware that some of these options are out there, and that way you can go and explore on your own, spend some time if it has any interest to you at all, and just see what's out there and see what you might want to add to your radio use. So we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. This is Chris KY4CKP for Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association 73.